When Angelenos went to vote in this year's primary election, they were greeted with long lines, malfunctioning machines, and locations that were both understaffed and had undertrained election workers in them. The city spent $300 million on a new system and closed a number of polling stations. Election workers handed out a record number of provisional ballots and the newer conditional ballots because the system kept crashing or would not sync with the data at the registrar's office. This clearly led to many voters being disenfranchised. Hi, I'm Tina-Desiree Berg, and in this special report, we dissect what actually went wrong in LA County on Super Tuesday, and we speak directly with many involved. The story begins with Dean Logan. The LA County Registrar resigned from Kings County in 2006 when they experienced problems with their contested 2004 governor's election. Dean had admitted in 2005 to using flawed methodology. Yet, in spite of this, he landed the number 2 job in Los Angeles. Hour and a half? All right, so this is what he was talking about. They apparently don't. Oh, they gave you, wait, what is this?
That's the time that we started the line.
Oh my God.
And they gave us trackers.
They gave you trackers when you first checked in?
We came in around 5:49 where the booth is.
Yeah.
So.
This is crazy. So basically the elected officials basically telling me that they don't have enough people to man. I spoke with election worker Emily, who is one of 4 election workers at the UCLA location. At this particular location, they had lines that were up to 3 hours long. Here's her story.
If the system would have worked.
Yeah, exactly. So it didn't work. One of the things that I noticed at several of the locations that I was in is that machines were malfunctioning left and right. One location I went in, they had a total of 6 machines, 3 of them were down. So that's half. And I was hearing about reports of that being the case at many other locations. Did you have problems with any of the machines in your location?
We had a few voting machines that were not working. They were out of order from the days before the election, so we put out of order on them. But the major issues that we were having were with the check-in tablets.
Okay.
So that's a whole complete system.
Walk us through that.
Okay, so when people come to vote, we check in their information through the LA County program on tablets, and we see their status as a voter, and that's when we issue them the ballots.
Right.
And we print it out. They take that ballot to the machine, insert their information, pick out their candidates, print it out, review it, and then insert the ballots
printout,
back into those machines where they are secured and safe. And that's how it was supposed to go smoothly. That's how we were trained, but that never happened.
So what were some of the things that were holding up on the tablets? Was it missing information on the voter files? Was it address issues? What were some of the issues?
So I think I am not computer technician, but I think what ended up happening from what we noticed is that the system was lagging. It kept syncing. We kept getting syncing, and it slowed everything down.
Oh, okay.
So the system started
it was overrun.
Yeah, we couldn't find voters' information at all, even though they had the affidavit with them. They had their they already had the new system also allowed people to download an app.
Yeah.
And they already had their poll pass, which means they already picked out their candidates, so you just have to scan it in. And none of that worked. Oh, it was supposed to be a faster way to do it. People showed up with their ballots, the informational ballot that you receive at home, so that you can scribble down who you're going to be picking. And that couldn't be scanned. It couldn't be found. The information couldn't be found. The voters' information basically disappeared. Some of them were there. Great. We found some people. And as soon as we started processing their ballots, automatically the system started issuing provisional ballots, whether we found their information or not.
You're kidding me.
And a lot of people were like, wait a minute, I registered our time. I've been living here for 5 years. I voted in 2018. Why can't you find my information on the system? So we had to register these people as brand new voters, which meant they had to get the conditional ballot.
Yeah.
So is it going to count? Is it not going to count?
Who knows?
It all ended up in one big fat box.
Which really frustrates me because we know that oftentimes those votes aren't always counted. I think a lot of them are, but I'm pretty sure that from what I've seen, all of them are not. So that's unfortunate.
Also, many that were registered as no party preference voters told us the crossover ballot didn't arrive after requesting it before the deadline. During training, new system allowed us to give crossover ballots, but on election day, the check-in tablet automatically issued provisional ballots for those voters because the system was slowing down while syncing.
But if they didn't have enough election workers on the day
Right.
of election, how are you going to sort out and verify thousands?
Yeah.
Actually, it was
hundreds of thousands.
Right.
If you see the tallies, it's a lot.
Right. So there had to be at least 1,000 from my precinct.
Oh,
I don't
100
know.
There's probably more than
there
that.
were hundreds of students standing there. And so from what I hear from other poll workers that started commenting on my feed, I was in the Valley, same thing happened. I was in Santa Monica City College, same 5-hour wait, same thing happened. So it was already being reversed. South Central,
Oh yeah,
East LA.
Manual Arts had a huge problem
So
as well.
a lot of people were saying the same thing happened in their huge, humongous precinct. And I think it had to do with the volume of voters.
Yeah.
They shut down a lot of election centers to save
Well, that's
money.
exactly right. There were fewer sites this time because normally, and we should clarify this, normally in Los Angeles in the past, it's been easy to vote in the sense we've always had problems with provisional ballots and mail-in ballots being thrown out, etc. But the long lines is a new thing. At least in the past, you could walk into one of the voting sites and cast a ballot within 20 minutes. This was unheard of. And as far as I'm concerned, creating long lines in this way is absolutely a form of voter suppression. It may be a little bit more subtle than a voter ID law, but as far as I'm concerned, it is a form of voter suppression because if you don't have the time to stand in a 1.5 hour, 3 hour, 5 hour line, you've lost your right to vote, and we shouldn't expect that of our citizens.
The nurses and the cafeteria workers left the line. I saw them.
They had to go back to work, yeah.
And it just made me so sad. One of the nurses came up to me and she's like, "Is there a way?" I was like, "Let me ask." And I asked people in the front of the line, I'm like, "Please, can you let her?"
Yeah. So one of the other things that I noticed, so Supervisor Hahn is actually going to be bringing a motion in front of the Board of Supervisors on Monday morning to investigate some of the problems that happened in Los Angeles County on Super Tuesday. One of the things I noticed in her motion was that around 17,000 mail-in ballots never reached the voter. So that is inexcusable as well. What was done in those situations? Do you know?
So I had a lot of the voters showing up and say, "I never received my mail-in ballots. So people are like, "Oh, why did you wait last minute?" No, they did not wait last minute.
Yeah.
A lot of these voters that I dealt with, they are permanent mail-in ballots. And they requested the crossover ballot before the deadline.
Well, that's right. Hang on.
They never received any of this stuff.
Let's discuss that for a second. So folks that don't live in LA probably don't, or even in California, don't know what that is. So if you have a mail-in ballot and you're registered as an NPP voter, which NPP is no party preference, you're an independent, you're not a member of the Democratic Party. If you want to vote in the Democratic primary, you can, but you have to have what they call a crossover ballot, and they're not going to mail you that unless you request it. So if you are a mail-in person, you have to go to the polling site and surrender that one to get your crossover ballot, right?
That's if they did not mail that ballot to you. And a lot of my friends have said they have not received it, but one of my friends was smart enough to go the Sunday before election, and she was able to get her crossover and everything went fine. But many people were not so fortunate, or they didn't have that information. Unless you speak to people who are politically active, you are not aware that you're going to show up and you're going to get a ballot that may or may not count. So that was a huge problem.
It is a huge problem. Another thing Greg Pallas had mentioned to me when I talked to him a few days back was that there's some sort of gag rule where the poll workers aren't allowed to offer a crossover ballot unless the person asks for one, which is mind-numbing to me. That seems also to be a form of voter suppression.
Correct. So people did not know. I just had to process what they requested. And I wasn't allowed to share any information that they did not offer.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that was in the training.
That's just not right. Another thing that really upset me about this round. So in the past when we voted, we always got these little stubs, right? And if you get a provisional ballot or regular one, there's a number on there. You can actually go online and you can trace where your ballot is in the process, right? Correct. So say you did a ballot and you want to make sure it was verified, there's not a problem with the signature, whatever, you could go online. If there was a problem, you could always go down to Norwalk to the county registrar's office and correct that. That was an option, right? I don't see how they can continue doing that this time because they gave you absolutely nothing.
Right. So the way to do that is to use your own name and registration that you have, all the information, the address that you use to register to vote. Go up and look up your own information again on the LA.net.
LA Votes, whatever, yeah. Okay.
Website, and that's how you can try and trace if you can find your information on that website. Good luck to you.
Good luck to you. Yeah, there's no paper
you could
trail.
try and trace it that way.
Okay.
That's what we were told, that people can do that.
Okay.
However, now I'm hearing from people that information is not available until 30 more days. That was like what they were finding out, that it's, and the same thing with provisional ballot. It's might not get counted until, I'm hearing different stories, different sources. There is no information out there that's enough for people to know what is going on.
This is a disaster.
Correct. I mean,
it should not be that hard to vote.
They didn't, I think they cut down all these election centers, but they did not anticipate. They thought like, oh, let's open it for 4 days, but people didn't have that information. They didn't know that.
No.
They
also,
had that.
Let me point this out.
Yeah.
They were all supposed to be opened on the 22nd, and a lot of them were not opened on the 22nd.
No.
We went by several locations that were not open yet, where they were in various forms of disarray. So I'm not sure how many of them actually opened on time. That's another thing.
I was supposed to report to a specific location 4 days before the election, but I never got the rest of the location, the time, never had that full information. And I'm like, okay, maybe they don't need me after all. And finally I get a phone call the day before the election, and my lead, who was at my election center, freaking out. She's like, please tell me you are coming tomorrow. I'm like, I didn't get any information. She's like, no, we need you, please. I go,
okay,
but am I going to get paid? She's like, I don't think so. You're a volunteer. So here I am showing up
as a
not
volunteer.
Knowing I'm just volunteering.
Hello, I'm Melanie Cohen from AD 66 down in the South Bay. Even in the South Bay, our senior citizens were not given directions how to vote. I know personally 24 who walked out with their ballots. Unfortunately, there was not enough direction nor training on this new system. This morning, I just put up a post on my Facebook, normal, talking to my friends. Hey, did anyone have trouble voting? I immediately got 20 responses, including telling me that when they came to vote, they could not vote, and some of them had to leave because machines were down.
Screaming, I don't know how to work this machine. So they had to, we had to help them. They were begging us to help them. I don't know what to do. People were running out with the ballots because they thought,
they thought they were receipts.
That was the receipt.
So they weren't scanning it back in.
Chase them out, no, please, sir, put it back in. That's mine. No, it will not count if you don't put it back in the machine. And then they'd go back to the machine. There's already another voter there. So now we have to cancel the old ballot.
No, you have to.
And now we have to issue them a
new
provisional
one.
ballot.
You're kidding me.
Mm-hmm. It happened
So if somebody had started voting on the machine before it had been scanned back in, that would just completely void it out.
When they tried to scan it back in, we would get a notification saying this person has already voted. No, they did not. And it was like,
that's the first I'm hearing of that.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Well, because it wasn't clear. I mean, if you didn't have a poll worker standing within a certain amount of space, I didn't realize I had to scan that back through.
But we explained it to everyone who checked in. We would explain to them the complete process. But
Which
at
takes
one
more
point-
time.
Yes, at one point we were just like, please scan it back in. I don't think they understood what
No.
that meant, especially
No.
if they
If
are
they were an
not
elderly-
tech
yeah,
savvy.
exactly.
They did not understand what that meant. How do I scan it upside down? And that's when it jammed. And they were even lucky to just get a ballot that actually printed. That was the challenge that we were dealing with a lot more than just teaching them how to scan it back in.
My name is Melissa Michelson, and I am, among many things, the president of Feel the Burn Democratic Club Los Angeles. Thank you. I'm also I'm a California state delegate to the Democratic Party, as in the progressive wing, of course, and then also a newly elected LA County member of the Democratic Party. So it's time for Dean Logan to resign. Why is it that at each primary election, 2016 and again 2020, things are just getting worse? This time, he put a new electronic system into effect without it being certified, and look what happened. Crashes, problems with connectivity, more versus next buttons, resulting in candidates being virtually invisible to voters on the screen, with a subsequent lawsuit coming now out of Beverly Hills. In addition, there was a lack of adequate education to voters about how to work the computers. People would literally take their ballot away and walk off with them. So what happened to their vote? In one voting center that I observed in Alhambra, this had a recurring problem. I had to help them make 17 signs, take them to each booth, and it read, "Do not take your ballot, it goes back in the printer." Why weren't those signs all around? And why was I doing this? But who am I, and why am I doing this? Why am I here? I'm a concerned American that regardless of whom a voter is supporting, I expect my voting system to run smoothly, not disenfranchise voters with hours of lines, withhold their vote by mail ballots, and 17,000 of them apparently were never mailed out to them, so they had to go in person and vote provisionally. And I expect every eligible vote to count immediately, with no questions asked, not provisionally. In LA County alone, 77,000 provisional ballots were given out, and 170,000 other ballots had issues with them. Plus, they're still counting the 555,000 mail-in ballots. So I observed 7 voting centers over the primary voting period. During early voting, the centers were empty, but the poll workers were giving misinformation. Registered voters were not found on the e-poll book check-in system and being handed provisional ballots. And at Pasadena City College Voter Center, I recorded the poll worker immediately asking for ID as someone tried to check in, which goes against the poll worker handbook instructions. At that moment, when I tried to intervene and correct him for asking for ID, he got mad and said he'd call the police to have me removed.
Yes, it is.
No, listen,
ma'am. You're
okay?
in here bothering the voters, which is why we're
What does
here,
that
and
mean,
you have to
bothering?
go. You have to go. You're not letting them vote. You're in there.
I'm
you're
not
talking
letting
to them.
people vote?
Yes, you
How
gotta
is
go.
that?
You
saw
gotta go.
that?
You gotta go.
You saw me
Let's
not
go.
letting
You gotta-
people vote.
Everybody else is saying that, ma'am.
Under his
Oh,
direction?
gotta go.
everybody else is
Yes,
saying that.
everybody that works
That
here is
I'm
saying
not
that.
letting
They
people
called the
vote?
cops on you 3 times.
That I'm not.
3 times.
You said
You gotta
that
go.
I am disturbing people
Do you
and
get
not
paid
letting
for this?
people vote.
You're wasting your time.
And you
go
are
home
too.
and relax. No, this is my job.
I
This is
wanna
my
check
job.
the vote.
And you're right. I have other important calls to attend to.
I agree.
This is a waste of time.
It is.
Okay?
And
you
I'd
gotta
like to
go.
observe this
Okay, you
polling
gotta
center
go.
because
Let's
there
go.
are problems going on in here.
Let's go. You gotta go, man.
Why?
You have to go.
Did I stop anybody
We
from
already
voting?
explained to you why.
Because Armando, he's in charge of this poll.
Okay.
For whatever reason, whatever reason, you guys had some jurisdiction. I don't know. Whatever.
Right.
He called Norwalk. They said
Right.
under his discretion, he's allowed to ask you to leave, and you have to leave. Okay.
How do we know
Listen,
that's what
stop.
they said?
Call.
Stop.
Call. You can
No,
call right
if
now.
you
Can
still
I?
want, if you want someone to observe, get
Yeah.
someone else to come and observe for you. But you can't come back here.
Get who to come observe?
If you want someone else to observe for you,
Uh-huh.
have them come over here and observe for
And
you.
when they find a problem, what are they supposed to do?
Then they address it.
Yeah, that's what I was doing. But when you do that,
No.
Armando gets upset and calls the police. That's the
If
situation
there's
here.
something you should address with Norwalk.
I called the registrar's office hotline, but it was on hold forever. The same thing happened on voting day in South Central. Because I expected accountability from the center and asked questions, I was accused of disturbing voters. Armando, the precinct captain at the Central Park Rec Center on 22nd Street, called the police to remove me. I was neither challenging a voter or electioneering. Both are against the law as per this guide right here, guide for poll watchers. He could not prove that I was doing anything like that.
So I'm here with Rodolfo Barragan, who was just a recent candidate in congressional elections here in California. We're standing in front of the county registrar's office. And as many know from my reporting, there was a predominance of problems on Super Tuesday here in Los Angeles. We had 3 to 4 hour waits in almost every single election site. We had the software crashing so that the poll workers and elections workers were not able to access the data that was in the database. So they were giving out provisional ballots. We had a myriad of problems. Did you witness any personally while you were in your precinct on that night? And if so, tell us what some of those things were.
Yeah, so obviously there were just too many people and not enough poll workers or enough machines that were working. So all of that was, of course, orchestrated, right, in this way. You know, for decades, the people had a system that worked, that had very few, if any, scandals about voting rigging. But then come in the electronic voting machines that Dean Logan introduced, and look what we have, a big mess because many people are not quite sure how to use them, and they break down all on their own. Yeah. So all of this is unacceptable. So, of course, that's why, you know, we're here to make sure that he resigns, because he must resign. You know, he already pulled off election fraud in other places, and that shouldn't be allowed to stand.
You know what? Let's talk about that. So Dean Logan was previously employed in Kings County, and how is it that after that happened, he got a job here in the city of Los Angeles?
Well, you know, we'll have to dig in the records and really go make sure that the County Board of Supervisors knows that we will not stand for this. We will not allow this to go on. But unfortunately, of course, elections in the United States are by and large rigged by the powers that be. And one of those ways is to make sure that they get the specific people that they want to be in charge of the elections to be counting the votes, right? So that's what we have to work against so that we can have truly transparent elections, which, of course, as anyone would tell you, is just, you know, we need things like hand-counted paper ballots. What's so difficult about this? Why do we need complex machines that are completely riggable and haven't even been verified by security experts? It doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. You know, part of that is that the software is proprietary, which is, I think, is ridiculous that any voting system would allow for it to be proprietary, only for the corporations to see. That's a problem. Also, you bring up Incovote, which is what we used previously. The rest of the state did use Incovote on Tuesday and absolutely did not have the experiences that were here in Los Angeles. I know several of the sites I visited were having machines down, or like you said, they didn't have enough poll workers there to run the machines that they had. One site had 20 machines, but only enough poll workers there to man 5 of them. This is unacceptable. And in my opinion, long lines are absolutely a form of voter suppression.
Of course. Yeah, so for decades we had the Incovote system, which, you know, for those that are familiar with it, it's a little bit clunky, but it works. It works. People felt like their vote was truly being counted, and it was counted actually by a machine that, say, wasn't connected to the internet. It was an ancient machine, which it worked, and we had no scandals. But look now, people oftentimes say, reporting that, you know, if there were a lot of candidates, for example, on their ballot for a particular position, oftentimes they have to say more, and then people didn't know exactly where their candidate was. So all of that is a way to rig the election against the people, because, you know, the people shouldn't be it shouldn't be so difficult to vote.
You know, one of the other things that you bring up that I think is important, when you were using the system, you had to print out the ballot and re-scan it back in. But a lot of folks that were used to having a receipt when they voted left with those and didn't re-scan them back in. So one of the election workers I spoke to said that they were constantly chasing down voters to bring the paper back in to get it re-scanned. And they didn't seem to understand that if they didn't re-scan that paper, their vote would not be counted. So this was happening a lot too.
Exactly. So there were all of these multiple roadblocks that voters kept facing, and these were completely unreasonable and continue to be. We should not have so many steps in voting. Rather, you know, the people should just be able to show up in the way that they were for a long period of time and simply give their information so that they could get their ballot and vote. So we've gone backwards. We need to go back to the former system, and even that system that we could make improvements on it. But this current system that they've pushed on us through Dean Logan, it's completely unacceptable.
Speaking with Paul Padilla, who is a recent candidate for City Council and also the County Committee, Central County Committee, and I believe you won that particular election. So talk to me about why you're here today and why some of the problems that you experienced or saw or witnessed yourself on Super Tuesday.
So, yes, Paul Cole Padilla here, and I'm here to call for the resignation of Dean Logan. We're hoping he'll resign tonight. He may not. And if he doesn't, we're calling for him to be fired tomorrow. So today's protest is hashtag resign Dean Logan, and tomorrow's is hashtag fire Dean Logan. What I witnessed in San Gabriel was too long a line. In elections past, the longest I've probably waited is about 10 minutes. Right. And thankfully, I had done vote by mail. And so I was able to just drop it off, go to the side of the line, and it was easy. However, the line appeared to be about an hour long. That was the estimate being given by people. And this was at closing. Yeah. And that's usually when the line, in my past experience, is the shortest. So, and by comparison, San Gabriel was in a lot better shape than other places. Yeah. And by other places, I'm specifically referring to college campuses. Right. And my fear is black and brown and poor communities. Yeah. And I want this investigation to actually determine whether or not there was neglectful or intentional voter suppression in vulnerable communities. UCLA, I'm wearing my UCLA alma mater little jacket, had, according to your reporting, 4 poll workers for a campus of, what, at least 50,000 students, 100%. Faculty, staff.
And it was not only just the students, it was everybody around that area as well. So it's a disgrace.
Pasadena City College, where Melissa Michelson, one of the organizers of today's protest, is, there were precisely 3 voting check-in e-poll book machines for a campus of 30,000 students. Republicans in red states are infamous for these types of voter suppression techniques, especially among students. I think Alabama would be envious of what happened here in Los Angeles. Yeah. It was Banana Republic. As I said, Dean Logan sailed the ship of democracy in LA County into the rocks. And when a ship captain crashes the ship, he, she, or they are relieved of command. Yeah. And if they are not, they are mutinied. And we the people are here to, quite frankly, mutiny him. If he does not resign, he will be, we hope, mutinied by the LA County Board of Supervisors. Right. We will be demanding that tomorrow. Dean Logan comes from Washington State, where apparently he was forced to resign. Yes, we should have never hired him here.
I agree.
And it's been a trail of problems that followed him from Washington here to Los Angeles County and has continued. Yeah. Worse. It's unacceptable, and unacceptable means unacceptable. If we allow the unacceptable to become acceptable, then we let them get away with this. Right. And nothing will ever change. We need to send a message right here in LA County to the rest of the country that elections heads who, either through neglect or intentional crap, pull off elections like this, the people will not tolerate it, and we will get rid of you.
Okay, so I'm being told by Melissa we're going to go up to Dean Logan's office now to give him the petitions for him to resign. I want to ask you really quickly, though, about one thing. One of the things in Supervisor Hahn's motion is she mentions that there were 17,000 mail-in ballots that didn't reach voters in time. And so my understanding of that situation is what happened is because they didn't receive them, they couldn't surrender them at the polling site either. And so they were given not even provisional, they were given these conditional ballots, which means they're kind of sort of a newly registered, which is worse than a provisional. This is absolutely unacceptable. Do we have any idea how that happened?
I don't. I want to find out. And that's why this investigation needs to be full and thorough. And independent. I am very concerned about Dean Logan remaining as the county registrar and investigating himself. That is unacceptable. I agree. We need an independent investigation.
I agree. All right, so I'm going to follow you guys up to Dean Logan's office now and see what he has to say about this. But I agree, there were problems in 2016. What happened this last Tuesday was worse than anything I've ever witnessed ever. It was horrible. It was inexcusable. And we know people didn't vote because of the lines.
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks for talking with us, Paul. We're going to follow you up there.
Let's go. Are we 6 or 7? Everyone's getting up for this. Let me get out.
Yeah, let's come in with the 6 right here again.
Let's come in. Let's Betty up front. Representation back here.
I got them upstairs right now.
We need an escort. Why do we need an escort?
I don't know, so that they can make sure that you don't talk to the ballot workers, you follow the rules.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of find it a little weird, because this is a public election, I mean, this is public, it should all be public.
Right, I don't disagree.
So we're trying to. So hi, we are here at the LARRCC with all the people who are making this protest against Dean Logan to resign. We are on the 7th floor trying to file a complaint and to hand over a document. There's nobody ready to accept any kind of document with respect to the complaint that people are here with. People are here from all walks of life, from different districts, for different candidates and different races. It's a non-partisan issue. It's all about transparency and integrity of the election. And people are very peaceful. They're all here. Betty is here. You know, I see a bunch of friends behind me who simply want to hand over a letter about the complaints that we have. And there's nobody here to take the complaint. Plus, we are being told that this floor has no access. This place is not welcome to public. This is not a public access place. This is where Dean Logan, has his office, which should be open to public access. And there's a security guard sitting there that's saying the public is not allowed in here. Although everybody's extremely peaceful, they just want to hand over a complaint to show their demands. The biggest demand here is that after such a lot of, fraud and mismanagement and plundering of hundreds of millions of dollars, people are just demanding his resignation. And they just want to submit this wonderful demonstration of peace that we've had here outside. They just want to represent that peace document over to Dean Logan so that it is received by the office, so that when we go out, we know that all this effort that's been made has concluded. We have documented it. We have handed over our demand, people's demand. This is not our demand. This is the demand of the people of all the district for the entire LA County. All over, everybody's experienced tremendous headache, tremendous pain and suffering, standing in line for hours and hours with plundering of hundreds of millions of dollars of public money spent on fake, defective machines that can shift results, machines that can change. $300 million. I'm not talking about $1 million, $200, $300 million that could have been spent on people doing hand counts. That could have been money that made by the people. People would have made money over it. Poll workers would have made money out of it. Poll workers that I know have been complaining that they were underpaid, like about $7 an hour when you divide it with the hours they were working on. So they were out there working till midnight. Everybody's extremely peaceful. The law enforcement is very, very cooperative here. They have, followed us here, but they're trying to make sure there's a cooperation and the job is done. So.
That's what we want, a real record. Like,
Today the
public
national strike?
We're here to observe. Okay. Democracy.
This is what democracy looks like.
We want it paper.
Carl, how you doing?
Who sent you? Who did you speak to upstairs?
We went to 7th floor.
And
the person out there, they said you need to go and 7th.
security or the receptionist?
Somebody from the reception, these guys, they said nobody's
You
here.
didn't get a name?
We just believe they said go here and submit it.
Redirect us again?
And we made complaint.
Can we talk to Dean Logan?
We want to look for a letter.
Where do we go? It's like you're having fun.
We can go there.
You want to look at the badge or something?
Okay, so let's get that letter back because we want to hand deliver it. We're gonna accommodate you guys. No worries.
Thank you.
If you could, we're waiting to. Can you not record me, please? Please. All right. I asked my.
Okay, we are now inside the county registrar's office in Los Angeles. I'm speaking with Betty Dumas, who is one of the organizers for today's protest. What are we doing right now currently?
We are currently waiting to find out where Dean Logan is. It's kind of like, where is Dean Logan? Where in the world is Dean Logan? We went up to the 7th floor, which is the executive offices. We weren't allowed access. We were just standing in the elevator area. And we were told that this might be a viable option to come down to the 2nd floor to get this letter that we are demanding his resignation. And we're just in a holding pattern right now in this office on the 2nd floor, and waiting to see if the people behind this counter can get us any help and get that letter, asking him just to do the right thing and resign.
So basically the idea right now is we're asking Dean Logan to resign ahead of the Board of Supervisors tomorrow. Supervisor Hahn is going to be bringing a motion to investigate the problems that happened in Los Angeles on Super Tuesday, many of which had to do with the failure of a system that we spent $300 million on that has proprietary software. And part of the problem I'm learning today was that they were scanning in mail-in ballots at the same time that people were voting, which overran the system. So it kept crashing. How did they not know to not do that?
This is failure to train people properly. We have another person that is amongst our activist group that actually demanded a training manual for the poll workers to see that and see how that it was all going to go down. And it took her days and days and days to even be told that there was one, and even to get one. These poll workers were not trained properly. This is an important election, and this is a huge misstep by Dean Logan. To think that to give reassurances when just ordinary citizens were just looking at it on face value and saying, this could be a problem, that could be a problem, that could be a problem, can you please address those? And then just giving us reassurances that these problems will be taken care of, and they weren't. And he needs to resign. And regardless of what happens at the Board of Supervisors meeting tomorrow, he needs to resign. We need to get somebody that's competent in there to actually take over and take over the count, take over and figure out what has gone wrong and how we're going to fix this and how we're going to move forward with saving our democracy.
Right. So it seems to me, you bring up the poll worker training, which didn't happen. The other thing that I think is really disturbing is that they were able to spend $300 million on proprietary software that's not working, yet they can't pay and hire a staff at each one of these election sites to man this. This seems like a ridiculous thing. Most of these folks were volunteers. I've spoken with several of them. I'm surprised they actually stayed the duration. They were getting yelled at by people because they were in line for 3 hours. The system was crashing, the provisional ballots. I mean, it's just a complete mess. And it seems to me that they should have had the wherewithal to actually invest in hiring and training a staff that can man the machines, because they must have known that people were going to walk out with those printed ballots and not realize they had to be scanned back in, because our prior system, the Incompetence, you did get a receipt from, right?
Yes.
So that's the other thing. We don't have a ballot number at this point. You scan that back in and you're given nothing.
That's right.
It goes right into the ether. I have a problem with that too, to be frank.
Yeah, actually, that's a really huge problem. I don't even think about that to this very moment, because I actually did vote by mail, and I never do vote by mail. I chose to do that this time around, and that's a huge problem that they don't even get a little receipt to go with them so that they can, figure out where their vote went.
Well, So you're supposed to be able to log back into the system and type in your name, your address, and all that, and it's supposed to come back up so you can check on your ballot, but that's not functioning either is the problem. This is part of the same software issue, right? Would you like to come in and join us? Here, come over here.
Also, one thing that is really, really important to note is that Dean Logan online was telling everyone, if you're not comfortable with the machine, go and ask for a paper ballot. But there was no such thing. People were calling me hundreds and hundreds of times. We are at this voting center. They have no such thing as paper ballot. They have a paper that says write-in form. But many of the sites that they have, voting center site, did not have paper ballot. In fact, I went myself asking for a paper ballot, and they said, yes, we have, but not in English. So that was... Yeah, not in English. So they had Persian, they had Korean, they had all the other languages, but not in English. And I said, then what should I use? They were forcing people to use the machine. That's what I want to say. They were forcing, and it was being set up by Dean Logan. They were trained like that. The staff was innocent, and they were just told whenever anyone asked for any kind of a paper ballot, just push them to the machine. And none of those votes are being counted. And that's why we are here. We are here for transparency, and I love Betty for doing this thing because we are here now at the second floor of the Election Information Center. We went all the way up to Dean Logan's office. We were told that that is not open to public. We are here, and this is what democracy looks like. We are here. We are fighting, and we'll keep fighting. Thank you so much. We'll keep you updated on this.
Yeah. Let me also bring up this because a lot of those ballots that you're talking about that were in Spanish or were in Vietnamese, etc., if they were filled out, they had to be placed into a pink envelope. And what was happening, and I know for a fact at the UCLA site, is because they were so severely understaffed, people were just throwing them on the desks. So there were piles of these handwritten ballots that were sitting there. They were never placed into pink envelopes, and I guarantee they're not going to be counted for this reason.
So I just wanted to, I was at the Columbus Middle School voting center in CD30, and the line, like I said before, was around the corner. We had poll workers coming out, I guess, out of total frustration of just telling people it's going to be another 3-hour wait. It was like 6 or so at night. I think it was, with no say, okay, it's going to be 3-hour wait, but we found another voting center that could possibly lessen your wait at this location. And I asked the person about it. It's like, they won't answer the phones. I'm sure they probably wouldn't answer the phones. But the thing is it was chaos, and I know that he came out there probably out of frustration, but people left. People were disenfranchised because they left and they didn't vote. And people, this one person that actually was staffed there as a poll worker, it was just extremely, extremely frustrating for them all day to actually be waiting and calling their supervisors and calling the registrar, these poll workers, and talking about what's breaking down, what's happening, and then not get any answer, and then not be told that they didn't even receive their issues to be even addressed. This is a failure of Dean Logan. This is, I know it's a failure of our Secretary of State. Why hire somebody on that has had issues in the past in a different state? I don't understand. This doesn't make any sense to me. And here we are over and over again having it. Why roll out a system like this now? And I'm sorry, nobody showed up to your mock election. I went and nobody was there. All right, so good news. We have a second in command, I guess, that's going to come down and accept the letter that we are asking and demanding that Dean Logan resign.
I just wanted to point out one more thing at the election night when I was out there at the site doing the vote count. First thing I was told was it's going to be a long night. It's going to be election count for about weeks. Then just a couple of hours later, Alex Oliveira came over again and said, you know what, we had a poor turnout and we'll be finishing the vote count early tonight. I said, for what I saw in District 30, there were overwhelming lines, massive turnout. I personally spent 2.5 hours, in line to cast my vote. So that's not true. I think there was a massive turnout, and I don't know what you're talking about. Then later down the line, they said, no, from what we see, We have got all the ballots in, and we are going to count all of them on 6 o'clock in the morning. They said, we've already counted all the ballots. Now I see that ballots are still being counted. So I don't know why they have to lie. This whole election is about lies, lies, and more lies. And people who are in line for hours, they feel cheated. The people who are in line hours, they feel that there is no law, there is no transparency. And we are here for the people. Thank you. Let's thank Alex. He's here.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, thank you, Alex, for coming down and meeting with us. We're a little concerned that Dean Logan is not coming down himself. Is he not available?
Dean is in one of our offsite locations. He has been for a few hours. So he's not on the premises.
Okay, well,
Downey location? I'm not sure where he is.
okay, because we really would like to hand this letter off to him. Thank you for coming, though, and thank you for being willing to accept this letter from us.
Yes.
This letter is one thing. We are asking for his resignation.
Understood.
Period. That's it. That's what we want, and we hope that you will take this and give this to him. And in good faith, we're handing it over to you to immediately.
This letter is from the people. This letter is from the people. It's a nonpartisan issue. It's from all districts. It's from all over Los Angeles County, all spectrums, and everybody's voice is in this letter. We did a very peaceful demonstration down.
Logan, we want you to resign. We resign. Uphold democracy and resign.
Shame.
This is why we are here. It's a very peaceful demonstration. We thank you so much for coming down. And it has started, as I was telling you earlier, and there are much more people outside. We didn't want everybody to come here. Thank you so much, Alex. Thank you. Thank you for the people. So can you make a copy? No. We need a copy of this received.
Also, you're allowed, if you'd like to comment, I'm allowing you that.
Actually, I'm not allowed to comment.
Okay, but I wanted to offer
So,
this person.
okay. So what we want is a copy of this. So we have a copy of this,
want a copy of
so that for our record.
We'll
Okay.
timestamp it for you
Yes.
as received.
Thank you.
And give you a copy.
Thank you.
Just right here.
Okay. So thank you so much, Alex. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So we have this copy of the complaint that we submitted. It's one simple request, one simple demand that Dean Logan must resign.
Take that one up now regarding the registrar recorder. And again, I would ask that our individuals in the room help the audience get out quietly. So with that, item number 6, Supervisor Hahn, if you would like to open it up, I would appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. And again, I'll just echo your remarks about just if you're leaving the auditorium now, we're still in the middle of our meeting. Well, not the middle anymore, but we ask for your cooperation. Colleagues, it's obviously Election Day, our March 3rd primary for Los Angeles County has come and gone. And for me, there seems to be more questions at this point than answers about what took place on Election Day. Our Registrar Recorder, Dean Logan, is here today. We thank you for being here. And I'm just going to say from...
Okay, you know what, you guys, please. And if the security out there identifies who is disrupting, you will escort them out of the room. And it's going to start with you, Mr. Previn. Thank you. Go ahead, Supervisor Hahn.
Thank you. And obviously this motion that is before us today is asking you to obviously take a good hard look at our election voting opportunities for LA County residents. I don't expect you to have answers today. Probably some of my colleagues will be asking you questions about what happened, but I personally don't expect you to have answers today, but I do expect a very thorough analysis of what happened. Now, I will say personally, my experience on Election Day at 8:45 in the morning was okay. I only waited in line a couple of minutes. I checked in. I found the machines to be very user friendly, and had no problems. But as the day progressed, I began hearing anecdotal evidence of things that, in my opinion, went very wrong on election day. We had instances of people waiting 2-3 hours to vote. And we don't know how many people just got out of the line because they couldn't wait any longer. They had kids to pick up. They had work to get back to. They were in school themselves. And we don't know. We just don't know how many people actually got out of line. I heard about the e-poll books that were not synced properly or did not function at all, so that when someone did check in, the ability to find their name even at that point was difficult, and many of them were not even found in the system, even though they knew they were registered to vote, and then they were given provisional ballots. I heard reports of broken VSAP machines across the county. In fact, I did even in my own polling place, well, it was my vote center, I saw machines with blue tape across them signifying that they were out of order. I heard stories of machines being out of order, calling for IT support, having these support people come and being unable to fix the machines. I have heard of, our poll workers, our vote center workers working, 12 to 18 hours without a break. I also heard of some of these workers not, according to what I've been told, not being sufficiently trained. I was told that some workers were asking for IDs, which is absolutely not supposed to happen. I heard there was insufficient parking at vote centers and not enough centers with ADA access. I heard that not all vote centers were supplied with paper ballots. And once again, workers were unable to reach someone to remedy that situation quickly. I know that you are going to have a manual tally of 1%, which is the requirement, but wondering if you might consider 2%, since this was a new system, and maybe that will give us better information. As you know, stuff happened under your watch that had nothing to do with the new VSAP system on Election Day. Measure FD was left off of 66,000 ballots in Pomona and Hawthorne, and I also got a stack of letters today, one from Calabasas, the mayor of Calabasas, who said FD was also left off of a particular precinct there and was very concerned about that. We know that people, again, I feel like we did hear, I heard from my Congresswoman Annette Barragan, who sent her workers, her staff members out to voting centers throughout the district on Election Day and came back with many of these same problems that I heard about. I heard that when poll workers had problems, they attempted to reach somebody in your office and many times couldn't find the right person that could help them with the issues. Again, I don't expect you to answer any of these problems. There were a lot of things that probably did go right. But to me, that does not negate everything that went wrong. Voting is, I don't have to tell you, you know this, just so fundamental, so precious, so important. This election, we always say it's the most important election in our lifetime, and a lot went wrong. And I've got to tell you, I was very, very disappointed, very disappointed. We know the majority of people waited until Election Day. I was one of those, mainly because I hadn't made my mind up yet. And so I did wait till Election Day. But we weren't ready for that many people. I heard that the lines were long because there were not enough workers to check people in. on those e-poll books. So that became the choke point. But it's just unacceptable to me. And I'm still getting complaints. I'm still having people meet with me, sending me anonymous reports about their experience. So for me, this motion says to you, please investigate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think there's been a lot of statement of the problems, and I'm going to add to it, and I'm certain that public comment's going to add to it as well, where people want to say, just as they did after the Woolsey fire, this is what happened to me, this is why it was bad, was a terrible thing, and what are you going to do about it? So I want to add to some extent what I heard in addition to what we've already heard about some of the problems for you to take into account. First of all, the volunteers were required, as I understand it, not simply to work for 1 day, but to work for 2 days, and in addition to do a whole day's training. So that meant that they had to commit 3 days. I would really like us to take a look at that, and I say us because, we're talking to you because we're responsible for you, and we're not ducking from it. But there are many other things that I think haven't been brought up that I want you to take into account in looking at this. The former Secretary of State, Deborah Bowen, was a volunteer in the Marina. She went through her training, and some friends of mine went through it with her at the same place. They said it was stultifying and insulting, that the person who trained was insulting. Didn't matter that it was Deb Bowen, but it sort of exacerbated it since she did know a little bit about voting systems, including electronic voting systems. So we've had a long talk about much of it, and I think it seems
These folks are your constituents.
listening to my colleagues' talk, that these motions are going to pass.
Vasquez, Linda Bassett, Robin Gibson, Melissa Michelson, Robin Gibson, Jed Halper, Matthew Bavato, and Anastasia Kasser, Susan Monet.
Thank you. It's Eric Previn from Studio City in the 3rd District, and I appreciated the comment about how, is it possible that we had so many long lines and so many people were not served and didn't get a chance to vote. And in my district, in my neighborhood, that definitely happened. I have 3 or 4 anecdotal instances where people showed up. The line was simply too long for what they had planned. Evidently, they waited until Election Day, which is a problem. But the question is this body capable of planning anything? Because this meeting is absurd. We have been waiting for 8 hours and 45% of the people have left. So excuse me, Catherine Barger, don't bang the gavel, just listen. The public
No, I'm
is
not talking
furious.
to you, I'm talking to people behind you.
No, but don't talk to anybody. Listen. It's very, very bad, okay? The Board of Supervisors does it all the time. It's like a filibuster. So Alex Padilla, all due respect, is a guy who sits up there waving. It's not Dean Logan's personal fault, but this was a mess. And all 5 of you are responsible. So I like the kabuki theater of we're disappointed with Dean, but honestly, get it together.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Anastasia Kasar, and I'm from the California Clean Money Campaign. I'd like to thank the Board of Supervisors for allowing me to speak today. As a millennial young voter and activist, I support the motion to review the Election Day voting issues, but would like to ask you to do more. Young people are losing faith in our elections, and they're already reluctant to cast their ballots. That's why it's so important that you consider the Clean Money Coalition's letter request to fix the security flaws that experts have identified in the system. These flaws and other questions ignite young people's fears and therefore limit their and everybody's desire to cast their votes on Election Day. So I ask you to address these issues, if not now, then in a future meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
I was an election worker. Most voters couldn't be found in the new system. Whether they had their voter sample ballot, poll pass, or affidavit, when scanned, the system rejected 70% of the voters' info. The message on the check-in ballot, a tablet, kept stating, "Voter not found." Using other tablets did not help. Many voters reported they have not received their mail-in ballots or the wrong ballots. The check-in tablet automatically issued provisional ballots for 80% of the voters. Voters waited for 3 to 4 hours. Absolutely, there is no reason for them to be receiving provisional ballots. Voters screamed at us. We were there from 6 in the morning till 10:30 at night. No food, no water, no breaks. Thank you very much. I had young women of color screaming, why can't they vote? Why are they not allowed to vote? They registered on time. They had their voter information right with them.
Thank you.
That's a crime. He needs to resign.
Thank you. Now, okay, you know what? All the first row, gentleman with the hat, if you clap again, I'm going to ask you to leave. You, Mr. Spindler, I'm weighing enough. I'm done. Next speaker, without interruption.
Hello, Board. My name is Matthew Barbado. On Election Day, like many voters in LA County, I witnessed 3-hour wait lines, broken and insufficient check-in machines, and overwhelmed staff. I also spoke with and witnessed at least 3 voters leaving the polls and foregoing their right to vote due to the long wait. There is no other way to describe the effects that the atrocious voting process had other than disenfranchisement. I spoke with dozens and dozens, in fact, a majority of no-party preference voters at their homes who were confused and uninformed about the rules and requirements for their voting in the Democratic primary, particularly mail-in ballot voters. This most certainly resulted in untold numbers of voters not casting their votes in the primary.